voices blending, melodies ascending, harmony in the air. Our songs are never ending. In the barbershop we create magic. Brad and John show, yeah, it's pure classic. No instruments needed, just our vocal range. Notes flying high, it's our musical exchange. Tracy's station may try, but they can't compete. Our barbershop style, it can't be beat. Oh, the harmony of voices, so sweet. In the barbershop of life, our tunes will repeat. No need for instruments, no need for a band. Just the Brad and John show, the finest in the land.
John, do you think that barbershop quartets are a lost thing that we will not have anymore? I mean, with the generational thing, you and I are like 3 generations apart. I'm a pre-boomer, and you're a Z, aren't you? A Z, Generation Z, whatever you are.
I'm a Generation BH, which is Brad hater. I just troll you on the air all day. To answer your question, Brad, I think the decline of barbershop quartets is probably immediately concurrent with the decline of barbershops. So if you would show a chart over the last 70 years of barbershops, that line would probably be simpatico with the decline of barbershop quartets, wouldn't you say?
You know, Ronnie, we need you back, Ronnie. We need you back.
We do, and Dale. Now, see, Dale was my guy at the Spanish Lake Barbershop.
Did Dale buy it? Was it still Ronnie's Barbershop, or what was it called then when you went there?
No, Dale changed it to Spanish Lake Barbershop. For folks who don't know, Brad and I both grew up in the beautiful, affordable Spanish Lake, Missouri. And there was a barbershop, Brad, during your era was called Ronnie's Barbershop. During my era was Spanish Lake Barbershop, right there at beautiful Bell Park Plaza.
And Ronnie sponsored my very first Little League team, Ronnie's
And
Barbershop.
that started your love of supporting small businesses that support community activities, right, Brad?
You know, it's funny you should mention that, but that is sort of true because of the fact that after he sponsored, my team, we always went there for my haircut. Always. I had my mom take me there all the time. Matter of fact, even when I got old enough where I could drive, I still drove to Ronnie's Barbershop, got my haircut. How about that?
And
John?
then everybody in your life would go there for a bleeding, though, right, Brad? Because they were friends with Brad. They said, well, give me a shave, and while you're at it, just cut my neck.
No. And then I switched over to, God, what's the name of the barbershop? I can't remember, but I'll remember. Okay, that's John Combest. Today's date is June 20th. Is this like the marijuana day, 620? Is that?
No, but everybody's suffering from a major hangover after all of us celebrate Juneteenth, which is a real important day. Wink, wink.
You know, I heard somebody, matter of fact, it was Mark Cox this morning, and I heard somebody yesterday say that the real day should be Emancipation Day, when the day that Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. I mean, and I thought about that, you know what, that's probably, you get what I'm saying? Don't you think that would be the proper day, whatever day that was?
But I don't think we should be eliminating. I mean, I think if anything, make that an additional holiday, Brad, because if you look at federal and state and county and municipal workers, they don't get enough days off. So I agree with Mark. Let's make Emancipation Day a completely separate holiday.
They're like Mark Reardon. They don't work anymore. They just essentially have all this...
Brad.
Okay.
I sound like Shelley Barnow. Oh, Brad.
That's John Combest. He puts together this incredible website with all these important stories about the state of Missouri, sometimes even our side of the state, but mostly general kind of stories. He does not link to any government sites, at least he tells me that, but sometimes he does. But what we do is we start the show off on Friday with the Polka Boys.
Time for the John Combest Top 3.
And as I mentioned, John does the incredible website with numerous items on it. But on Friday morning especially, we play the Polka Boys because we bring this other guy in. What's your name, sir?
I'm Casey Kasem.
And John counts down the top 3. And we start with number 4. Just kidding, John.
In third place.
You got me on that one, Brad. Speaking of Brad Hildebrand, The subject of story number 3 today went full Brad Hildebrand on the radio. That's right. Lieutenant Governor David Wasinger, he was just speaking the unvarnished truth. He didn't sugarcoat anything. And boy, was he as cranky as Brad Hildebrand or what? I'll give you the details here, Brad. Lieutenant Governor David Wasinger, he's been in charge for a few days since Governor Mike Kehoe has been in France. He's been hanging out with Beldar and the rest of the Coneheads in France. David goes on KZRG, which is the Zimmer radio group, down in Joplin. He's on Morning News Watch. And they started off by asking him a little bit about the weather. And David was plugging there's a Lake of the Ozarks shootout this weekend, which is actually a big boat race. So David was plugging that. As Lieutenant Governor, David is really one of the chief advocates for Missouri tourism. David noted that Hulk Hogan was scheduled to attend, but the Hulkster's had a little bit of surgery lately and won't be there. Brad, I don't want to bury the lead here. The folks at Morning News Watch asked David about the stadium bill that passed. David's an advocate for tourism, but he's also a big financial conservative guy. He believes in fiscal conservatism and strapping down spending, right? So David says, look, here's the problem with the Senate bill. There was a lot of horse trading behind closed doors. And David points out, who makes a good decision at 2 a.m, Brad? Not many people. David pointed out that these folks in the Missouri Senate had been negotiating for 15 or 16 hours that day and then decided to take a vote. And here's where he goes full Brad Hildebrand. Besides the owners of the Kansas City Chiefs and the Royals, David says there were 2 groups who made out like bandits in this special session with the stadium bill. Brad, what 2 groups of people, as I put you on the spot, what 2 groups of people made out like bandits in this special session?
Well, the Cardinals, right? Is that...
That's one of the groups, Brad. And then I'll just say there's another profession that's going to end up making out pretty well.
Radio people?
Not radio people. You're far off with that guess, Brad.
Podiatrists?
No, one group, for example, your daughter would be in this group of people, Brad.
Attorneys.
Absolutely right. And David points out the fact that a lot of this language is going to be contested because, there was a property tax piece added to this. David points out that was used as kind of a gimmick. That's my word, not David's, to get some fiscal conservatives to maybe soften up on this bill. And David points out, look, this was a great bill for lawyers and the St. Louis Cardinals. So some plain spoken, some would say it's truth. Some would say that David's being cantankerous here. It does show a difference between the governor and the lieutenant governor. Obviously, the stadium bill is a huge priority for Governor Kehoe. And David Wasinger has really been banging the drum about the fact that he doesn't like the way the Senate operates. He doesn't like what the Brad Hildebrands of the world would call the old boys club or the establishment or what critics would call the swamp. And he doesn't like that these decisions were made in the dead of night after a lot of negotiating. So a little bit of distance there between where Governor Kehoe is and where Lieutenant Governor Wasinger is.
John, is that pretty much it for number 3?
Yeah, that is.
Okay, can I ask a favor? And I know we've got a little bit of time left here. Okay, you know what? I'm just going to play this clip, okay? Don't blow your headphones off.
Okay, I won't.
I went and pulled let me see if I can find it real quick here. Yeah, here it is. I went and pulled the Arnold Schwarzenegger audio from The View, okay? Now,
okay, I'm ready.
Okay, I'm going to play this, and then I'm going to make a comment about this, okay? You ready? Here we go. It's only 25 seconds long.
Democrats and Republicans have to come together and solve this issue if they really want to be public servants. Mm-hmm. If they want to be party servants and be party hacks and be tied to their ideology, then it won't happen. But if you want to make this country better, and if you want to improve this country and improve the situation of people's lives and bring the prices down and all of this, you will go and serve the people of America. This is what it is.
Okay, John, get what he's saying?
I do get what you're saying. Yeah, you like in terms of ditch the party labels and work for the best solution.
Well, more importantly, you got the sub-party labels like I have now called, and to the point where I understand that there's a hit out on me now by the Freedom Caucus, and that gives you an idea of what the Freedom Caucus is all about. You say something wrong, and the Freedom Caucus gets mad at you, sort of like Tracy and Rick Ellis. But that's the way I feel about it. And what he says is exactly right. You're a partisan. You're not helping the people, and that's so much what's going on in our government on so many levels. This whole crazy thing with the special session and the stadium bill and the whole bit, and then who's axles getting greased and stuff like that. You know what I'm saying, John?
Yeah. Well, hey, listen, I think it's a little early to talk about greasing your own axle, Brad. I might be going to get an oil change today, but man, it's a little early for that kind of talk.
Years ago, there was this article in one of my business magazines I read, and it gave like 30 corporate sayings, and it was like grease the skids, but those were like the minor ones, and one of them was, let's take it up to 120 and see if the front end shimmies.
Oh yeah, that's a good car. I saw one of my favorite accounts on Instagram. This is a brief diversion. It's a woman named Corporate Natalie, who's fantastic. And she sat her mom down, who looks, how could we say this? Almost a Brad Hildebrand type. Let's just use your imagination there. And then she played a bunch of corporate catchphrases and acronyms, and she had her mom try to guess what some of them are. Like really? COGS. COGS was a good one. And EOD and things like that. And SME, SME and things like that. And tried to have her mom guess what some of these corporate buzz phrases are. It's pretty great.
Did she get any of them?
Yeah, she got EOD, so she got end of day. She got the really basic ones, but a lot of the KPIs and stuff like that she didn't get.
EOD, maybe that's my military mindset. You know what EOD stands for in the military?
I don't know that.
Explosive ordnance disposal.
Oh, I thought that's what you usually go to your doctor for, Brad, but that's just ED.
Okay, here we go. Number 2.
Up a notch to number 2.
We talked the other day about, I believe it was Wednesday, Brad, you and I talked about the tragic death of a 16-year-old boy who had been in St. Louis. He came up here from Springfield. He came to St. Louis from Springfield, ostensibly to be part of the No Kings rally. He came up here with his friend and then the friend's 29-year-old mom. And then we lamented the fact that this man was killed and that apparently a man had been driving on the sidewalk and had been shooting a gun. And the car hit this young man, the 16-year-old teenager, and killed him. And we lamented the fact that this sounds terrible. I pointed out, Brad, that I don't know what kind of a person has a 16-year-old kid out at 1 a.m. on Wash Ave. But we heard from the father of the man who has been charged with this death. The father's name is George McDonald Jr., and his son is George McDaniel III. So we'll just say like George III and George Jr. George Jr. says that his son was coming out of a party on Wash Ave, and a group attacked a woman that the third was with, and that this man's son, George III, was simply trying to defend the woman who got beaten down. Now, Dana Reek in her post in the Post-Dispatch noted that there had been a video circulating that showed a group of people fighting and one particular man getting beaten down. George Jr. says that man getting beaten down was his son, George III. Said that his son, George III, happened to get in his car and tried to speed away. He was tired of getting beaten down. So he sped off, he ran up on the curb, and apparently hit this young man. Now, George Jr. says that George III did not have a gun and that his son knows nothing about shots that were fired. Now, at a certain point in this interview, which was conducted by Seth Nelson of the Post-Dispatch, George Jr. cuts off the interview, says, hey, I'm not answering any more questions. So what this seems to show, Brad, is at least there's two sides of this story. And also, police say that they're investigating the role now that not only the 29-year-old woman that was with the victim, but the role that the victim, this young man named Daniel from Springfield, what role he might have played in the beatdown of George III. Again, this is all unclear, and this is all based on this Post-Dispatch piece by Seth Nelson. So what it looks like here, Brad, is that we have one version of the story is that this young man was just walking to the store at 1 a.m., minding his own business, and a car runs up on the curb and hits him. The other version of the story, maybe this young man named Daniel was involved somehow in the beatdown of George III. George was just fleeing and ran up on the sidewalk and hit this kid. I don't know. I don't know who to believe here, Brad.
John, the old mayor of Florissant, Mayor Egan, was that his name? Remember Mayor Egan?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Mayor James Egan.
Mayor James Egan used to have a saying that nothing good happens after midnight. And that's why when White Castle wanted to come into Florissant, he said they had to close, and they settled at 2 o'clock. They had to close from 2 to 6 o'clock in the morning because he said that anybody out on the road between 2 and 6 o'clock in the morning is up to no good. So once again, it's that midnight hour, after midnight. And you got a point. He's 16 years old. Technically, he was not out legally. Isn't there a curfew in the city of St. Louis?
Yeah, actually, I don't know, but you would think there would be, and like using the fact that there was a protest earlier in the day. I'm not suggesting anybody's using that as an excuse, but the whole story just seems odd, Brad. Like apparently, the woman that he was with, the 29-year-old woman, I guess used to live here. I'm not sure exactly what the story is, but something doesn't add up here. Like the fact that a 16-year-old is out at 1 a.m., like you could say, okay, maybe he just heard a party and wanted to be around the fun and excitement. But there just seems to be the Post-Dispatch. I get the feeling that the Post-Dispatch reporters have heard more than they can let on in print. You get what I'm saying? Like that they've heard some theories,
right? Because
they keep bringing up the fact that police are investigating why the woman's connection to the beatdown and the party.
And according to George Jr., there were no shots fired. Isn't that what the story is, what he says?
Yeah, according to George Jr., his son did not have a gun. Now, he's not saying that no shots were fired.
Oh, somebody else.
But he's saying his son wasn't involved, and that everything that involves fire had to be crossfire with other participants.
Wonderful Wash Avenue. Okay, time for number one.
The number one.
Speaking of No Kings rallies, Brad, there's going to be an answer to No Kings. No Kings had thousands and thousands of people protesting, not just in St. Louis, but also in Kansas City, also in Springfield, Missouri, and a whole bunch of other cities. There is going to be a follow-up taking place, and that's going to be on July 17th. The brand new name of this protest is called Good Trouble Lives On. Former Congressman John Lewis, he was a civil rights advocate. He used the phrase, good trouble, we're going to get good trouble. And in fact, at like a lot of the No Kings protests, you'd see people with shirts on that said, good trouble, we make good trouble. So Good Trouble Lives On, July 17th. In St. Louis, it will begin at 5:15 p.m. at a location to be determined closer to the time, Brad. They're not revealing where it is. And protests are now organized. The organizers say that locations will include St. Louis, Cape Girardeau, Kansas City, and Springfield. So more traffic blocking, more traffic distractions, more stomping around and really showing Donald Trump who's boss.
Is Maxine Waters coming into town?
She might be, yes. She might hold a press conference in Kinloch, and then she might adjust her wig, and then she might suggest that people harass Republicans going into restaurants.
John, I will say I feel sorry for the people of Kinloch. I feel sorry for the people of Carrollton. I've said this before. I mean, because of the fact that those were vibrant neighborhoods. Well, Kinloch maybe not so much, but once again, it's sad. But what do I know, right? The answer to that's not much. Okay, John.
You know a whole lot.
I don't know. I don't know Jack Schmidt, as they say in the ad.
I remember that commercial. Hey,
they were great
real
ads.
Quick, Brad, before we go to break, I'd be remiss if we didn't plug an honor for a radio broadcaster and a guy who we discussed a couple weeks ago. Remember we talked about the fact that the Occupy Democrats channel has a guy named Mark Bland and a guy named Jason Colon. Remember that story, Brad?
Yeah, that was. I couldn't figure out. You kept telling me they own the channel, and they don't own the channel.
I didn't say that at all. I actually went back and listened to our segment, and I said that they had a show on Occupy Democrats. But anyway, Brad, Mark Bland, he worked for many years as a pro wrestler, and this weekend he gets inducted into the Independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Really?
On Sunday, there's an event at Andre's Banquet and Catering Center, 1 p.m. Sunday. You can go to Facebook and find more details about it. I'm not a boomer, so I actually went to Google and just looked it up like a normal person. But you can find details on Facebook. He's going in with other legends like Harley Race, Ed Smith, Steve Sharp, who I recall being the former MMWA SICW heavyweight champion, a guy named Jeremy Lightfoot, who's wrestled here for decades. Anyway, congrats to Mark Bland. It is a huge honor to go into this independent St. Louis Wrestling Hall of Fame. He formerly had a show, Brad, remember, on Thursday nights on KYRO, and he and Jason just left that show to go do the Occupy Democrat show. So anyway, big congrats to Mark Bland.
What name did he wrestle under? His own name, or he had another name?
Yeah, he wrestled under Mark Bland, yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Very rare that a guy wrestles under his real name, but he did.
There's a line I can use, but I won't. Okay, we have to take a break. Oh, by the way, John, and you think, John, here's what John thinks. We get off the air at 8 o'clock.
Thank you for reading my mind, Brett. Yeah, I do think that you sit around watching Whistling Diesel and not doing any work.
Right,
Yep.
that's what he thinks. Okay.
I know.
I have had the worst time with this one website, and you make fun of it the other day. Check out westplexnews.com.
Oh, are there a bunch of unattributed stories on there from other outlets that you don't give credit to?
No, wrong microphone breath. There is, I should say, wrong. Never mind.
Wrong
Okay.
domain. Yeah, Westplex News is not up.
No, come on. Westplexnews.com.
Yeah, it shows a big letter N with an X through it. No joke.
No.
Westplexnews.com has a big N with an X through it.
Refresh.
And a trademark sign and no content.
Refresh your browser. Refresh.
I just did.
Okay.
I literally just refreshed it.
It's there. Trust me, it's out there.
No, okay, go there right now and tell me, Brad. Westplexnews.com has an N
John,
with a trademark thing. It looks like some generic bunk that nobody who dedicates any time to creativity would post as a landing page.
I'm looking
and
at it.
it's just a blank page.
I'm looking at it on my phone. I'm looking at it on the computer across the room. I don't know why you can't get it. Okay, well, never mind with that. So disregard what I said.